Someone said, I had a teacher throw a flower pot at me with a flower and dirt in it in 5th grade. No, because I went like this. Peace. Hey y'all, I'm so pumped you guys are joining us for another week of Tribes as we're in week 3 of our series, Set Up. A quick recap for you. Week 1, we talked about SOAP, which stands for Scripture, Observation, Application, Prayer. Then last week, we dove deeper into prayer and talked about how prayer doesn't have to be something that's difficult. It's just like talking to a friend. And this week, we get to talk about worship and fasting. And if you're anything like me, just the word fasting makes your stomach grumble a little bit. And I don't know about you guys, but your girl gets hangry, okay? I vividly remember one time, it was a couple summers ago, before my husband and I got married. We were just dating, and he was living in Georgia and I was living in Iowa. But he was coming up to Iowa for the summer and needed his car. So I flew down to Georgia to visit him and his parents, and then he and I drove from Georgia to Iowa so that he could be here for the summer. And it's like a 13, 14-hour drive, so it's like super doable in one day. But we wanted to get up early so that we could try and avoid rush hour in the big cities, and we wanted to get back before it was like super, super late. So we got up early, probably like 7 or 8 in the morning. That's early for me, like really early. And we stopped at a Chick-fil-A for breakfast. Obviously, I got a chicken biscuit. If you don't know what a chicken biscuit is, I will pray for you. It's a biscuit with a piece of fried chicken in the middle. It will change your life. Okay, that was just a tangent. Anyways, then we got stuck in traffic in one of the big cities, which is exactly what we were trying to avoid. And by the time we finally made it through, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had not eaten since my one chicken biscuit in the morning. And I was so hungry. And Austin said something to me. I don't even remember what it was, but he said something to me. And I got so mad at him. I like freaked out, and then I just was quiet. Like I didn't say anything to him for probably 30 minutes. And then finally we got to a Dairy Queen. We stopped, we got some food. I had eaten like 3 French fries. And I turned to him and I said, Austin, I'm really sorry that I got mad at you. It probably wasn't worth fighting over, and I'm sorry that I got mad. Because I just was hangry, like, I wasn't even mad at him for any reason except that I like needed food and I was hungry. And the truth is, we get so like fixated on something and we can let it consume our thoughts, and then it can distract us from what is actually important. And that is just what it made me think of when we were talking about fasting, because fasting sort of relates to worship. And worship has a lot to do with what is consuming our thoughts and our attention and our time. So I want to start today with a question. What are you worshiping? I just want you to think about that tonight. What are you worshiping? Now, I want to turn to the story of the Israelites, because if you've been reading through this Exodus, doing SOAP with us in the book of Exodus this month, you're familiar a little bit with the story of the Israelites. And I want to fast forward a little bit. If you're following along with us in the Exodus book, you probably haven't read this yet, but we're going to turn to Exodus 32. So if you have this Bible with you today, it's on page 103. We're going to start right at the beginning of Exodus 32. But I need to give you some backstory first. Okay, and this is a spoiler alert. God brought the Israelites out of slavery, just as he promised he was going to. Okay, so that has happened. And then God meets Moses, who we know is the leader of the Israelite people, on top of this mountain, and makes a covenant promise with Moses. And then God is up there giving Moses these instructions on how the Israelite people need to live as God's chosen people. And then that's where we're jumping into the story, right at the beginning of chapter 32. It says, when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, they gathered around Aaron. Come on, they said, make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt." So Aaron said, "Take the gold rings from the ears of your wives and sons and daughters and bring them to me." All the people took the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. Then Aaron took the gold, melted it down, and molded it into the shape of a calf. When the people saw it, they exclaimed, "O Israel, these are the gods who brought us out of the land of Egypt." The Israelites really messed up. They were getting impatient with God, and they got distracted by what was so convenient and easy right in front of them that for them it didn't feel convenient to worship God, but it felt like a better solution to worship this golden calf that was right in front of them. And I wonder, have you ever let something besides God be the object of your worship? Now, I think it's easy to get a little bit distracted when we think of worship and assume that we just mean like singing songs and like worshiping to praise music. And that is a part of worship, but it's only a small piece. So I want to give you guys this definition for worship that helps us understand it's something that's a little bit more broad. Worship is giving value to what we see as valuable. So maybe for you, it's not a golden calf, but how many of you guys spend more time on this than you do in this? Maybe you're giving more time and attention to your phone than you are to the Lord, who is deserving of our worship. And the truth is, everything around us wants all of our attention and all of our love. And when you think about it, like TV producers, people who make TV shows, try and make the shows so that you just have to keep watching. You have to watch one more episode so that you know what happens. Next thing you know, you're 8 hours in your Netflix binging and you just have lost your entire day. Or social media companies actually use algorithms that encourage addiction to their platform. Their goal is literally to get you to give them as much of your time and attention as possible. But the truth is, God is the only thing that is worthy of our worship. None of those things can compare to Him. So I want to keep reading. We're going to skip ahead a little bit to verse 22. It's at the top of page 105. And it's now Moses has come back down from the mountain and is talking to Aaron, who is the one that was leading the people when they made the golden calf. He says, "Don't get so upset, my lord," Aaron replied. "You yourself know how evil these people are. They said to me, 'Make us gods who will lead us.' We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt." So I told them, "Whoever has gold jewelry, take it off." When they brought it to me, I simply threw it in the fire and out came this calf. Aaron is there saying, basically, we couldn't help it. We had nothing better. We just turned to what was convenient and what was right in front of us. And I wonder how many of us get distracted by whatever is convenient, whatever is just right there. And while God desires for us to worship Him, He forgives us when we fail at that, because we're going to fail at that, just like the Israelites did. And God forgave the Israelite people. And we're going to fast forward again to chapter 33, verse 13. And this is now a conversation between God and Moses. And God has forgiven the Israelite people for worshiping this false god, this idol. And now Moses is talking to God. And Moses says, "If it is true that you look favorably on me, let me know your ways so I may understand you more, fully continuing to enjoy your favor. And remember that this nation is your very own people." The Lord replied, "I will personally go with you, Moses, and I will give you rest. Everything will be fine for you." Now, I want to point out, God doesn't say that Moses is never going to suffer. God doesn't promise that to us, that things are never going to get hard. But He says, when they do, I will go with you, and you're going to be okay. Then it goes on. Then Moses said, if you don't personally go with us, don't make us leave this place. How will anyone know that you look favorably on me and on your people, if you don't go with us? For your presence among us sets your people and me apart from all other people on earth. We are called to live our lives differently than all other people on earth. The Lord tells us that we're supposed to live lives that demonstrate worship to Him, not worship to things of the world. And I just want to point out, the Lord is absolutely 100% the only one that can fulfill us. We can spend all of our time consumed by these other things, watching Netflix all day, or scrolling through social media all day, or spending time with other people that aren't great influences on us, and none of those things are going to fulfill us like the Lord. And just like Moses said to God, we need His presence to go with us, because if it doesn't, what's the point? So then, moving on in the story, God reestablishes this covenant with Moses, and He promises that He is going to go with His people. And then God, once again, gives the Israelites instructions on how to live as His chosen people. In chapter 34, verse 18, I just want to point out this one instruction. It says, you must celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days, the bread you eat must be made without yeast, just as I commanded you. Celebrate this festival annually at the appointed time. So basically what God is telling the people is that they have to eat flat bread, so bread without yeast, which is what makes the bread rise, for a week every single year to celebrate what God has done for them. And this sort of reflects what happens in Exodus 12, which we already read, when God tells them this same thing. But the difference is, the first time God tells it to them is when the people are still in slavery. So He's telling them, giving them this instruction that they are to fast from yeast. And so I want to redefine maybe what our understanding of fasting is, because it's not just giving up food for a day or a week or whatever. But instead, write this down actually if you're taking notes too. It says, fasting is saying no to something so that you can say yes to God. So right here in the book of Exodus, we see the Israelites fasting for 2 reasons. 1, to prepare for what God has promised to them that He's going to do, which is rescue them, but they haven't seen it yet. So they're waiting in anticipation for God to fulfill His promise, and they're just waiting and waiting and waiting and longing to see His goodness and His faithfulness. And so they fast. And the second time they fast is what we just read, which is a celebration, praising God for what He has already done. And I think it's so easy to get distracted by all of the things right in front of us, begging for our attention. But the Lord is the only one who's worthy of it, because of what He's promised He's going to do, and because of what He's already done for us. And that's why we fast. Fasting allows us to point our worship back to God. So I want you to think about this week. What are you going to give up to get more of God? What are you going to say no to so that you can say yes to God? So the challenge is simple in theory, but when you actually do it, it might be hard because we have to rely on the strength of the Lord. But the challenge is this: give to God what is His, which is all of your worship. Maybe for you, that's giving up TV for a whole week. Or maybe you're gonna fast from social media. Maybe you're gonna go a whole day without your phone. Maybe you're gonna give up video games for a week. Imagine that. And then you're gonna fill that time with more of God. Spend time in your Exodus, doing your soap, reading your Bible. Spend time praying. Just spend time with the Lord. and give to God what is his. Or maybe your next step is baptism. Maybe your act of worship is going to be surrendering your whole life to him and declaring in front of our church family that God is in control of your life, that you are giving him all of your worship. So I just want to leave you with this once again. What are you going to say no to this week so you can say yes to God?
Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us for Tribes tonight. And I want to give you one more reminder. If you think baptism might be your next step, please hear this. January 31st is our next round of baptism. So there's a new baptism meeting coming up in just a few short days, and we want you to be there. So if you think it might be your next step, if you want to even have a conversation about it, talk to your tribe leader. They will give you all the next steps that you need to take to get baptized this month. And with that said, so glad you guys are here. We'll see you next week.